I imagine all of its functions are going to be working at peak efficiency. I would hope. So, now it should be picking up my voice. So, hello. Hello, hello, hello. I come to you with more background-ish gameplay, but live commentary, because that's just how I run this YouTube channel nowadays. The last upload was for school. Completely ignore it. Or not. Maybe it'll have some advice you actually want. But, back on track. So, with the recent release of The Last of Us Part 2, it reinvigorated my never-dying lust for wanting to play the first one. Some brief history. The Last of Us is 7 years old. Came out in 2013. I've always wanted to play The Last of Us, ever since it came out. I've only heard the wildest, best things from this game, and ever since knowing of its existence, I wasn't like one who saw it during its first announcements, but, you know, just kind of hearing about it through the grapevine. Always a game that piqued my interest. Even more so before I discovered another game, which, you know, the comparing and contrasting will happen. One small problem with me wanting to play the game: PlayStation exclusive. Yes, oh yes. How we cannot allow ourselves to enter console wars. I already signed my fate getting an Xbox. I mean, it's always been an Xbox, okay? How was it? At first, it was a GameCube and a Wii, a PlayStation 2, or no, a GameCube, a Wii, a PSP, PlayStation 2, original Xbox, and then 360, and here we have the one. Honestly, I have no idea how the PlayStation 2, PSP, and the original Xbox came into my life. I know none of them were things that I really asked for, but I think they kind of just lent them to me. But yes, of course, by the time the game came out, my seal was faded. I was an Xbox person, so most that would happen would be me watching it, but I never decided to watch it. And many years down the line, somehow, find a PlayStation in the household. I'm kidding. My brother has basically every platform. I saw that he had the game, so, you know, I asked him, hey, you know, can I try out your PlayStation? I really wanted to play this game. Being a kind sibling, he, of course, lent it to me. So then yesterday, played it. I played The Last of Us Part 1, Last of Us Remastered, as in PlayStation 4 Last of Us, from start to finish in one sitting. Almost perfectly 12 hours. Something I never thought would happen, first and foremost. So, just getting a chance to play it is surreal enough on its own, because it's just one of those things, you know. I always in my head, as a kid, I always saw PlayStation getting cool stuff that Xbox didn't get, and I never in my life thought of switching sides. We'll say, I put that in huge air quotations because it's not that deep. It really isn't. I just have Xbox because that's kind of just what I chose, and all my friends are on Xbox, so there would be no logical reason for me to switch. And somehow life brought me to a point where I'm able to do what I once thought would be impossible as a kid. Great stuff. So, I'm not here to review the game. This isn't The Last of Us Part 1 review. How did I start this? Yeah, upon hearing the second one's arrival, you know, it made me remember. And then I came to that point yesterday where I ended up playing it. I still know nothing about the second one. I have heard the news. I have heard that its story has been leaked and people are not happy. I've seen the score on Metacritic and such, and it looks strange, to say the least. So going back, yeah, played it. I played The Last of Us Part 1, and that game, I think, has destroyed me. Now, what do I mean? I mean, something that people in the Walking Dead game I've heard talk about is this thing called post-series depression, is what they've called it. Basically, you beat the game, you beat the series, you realize it's all said and done, and you kind of just I don't really know how I would describe it because I don't even really know what it is. I'm pretty sure it's a case by case type of thing. You beat it and you're just kind of numb. You're just kind of you don't know how to feel. You're like a husk. That's how I felt after I beat The Last of Us. In the sense that after I beat it and I disconnected my brother's PlayStation and then I plugged in my stuff again. What's it called? I went on the Xbox store and I was kind of just staring at stuff. I was looking at the Xbox store and you know that meme of the horse or donkey, whatever mammal it is that's looking out into the ocean with the words, man, above its head? I kind of felt like that mammal right there. I was just looking at this catalog of games on Xbox and I was like, damn, we really just, we won't get a chance to have a game like that here, huh? Yeah. Let me preface this. The Last of Us 1 is a damn fine game. I mean, who donkey? A lot of points in it had me sweating, had hairs standing up, had goosebumps appearing on my skin. Very immersive. Let me tell you, for a game that's 7 years old, in some aspects, you can sense its age, specifically in the puzzle department. The ladders and the dumpsters and the pallets, the water pallets. But in everything else, you know, it just really, I feel like it excels in its field. You can tell that the game is inspired by things like Resident Evil, with the whole every shot counts type of mentality. The way the shooting is played, how it's not as fluent as, you know, your standard issue FPS, your Call of Duties and stuff. It almost feels clunky. In fact, not almost. It does feel clunky. It's hard to hit. It's hard to land shots. And you have to make them count because every shot is very precious. I played on normal difficulty. And the game was still very challenging. I did indeed fail a lot. There were some trial and error sections. But it never really took me out the experience. That game is very immersive, let me tell you. Because everything in it is masterfully crafted. The soundtrack, the way the game looks, the dialogue, especially the dialogue. Let me make a note on that. After playing The Walking Dead, I became a stickler for smaller details in games, and wow, that game really fills in that need for me. I mean, it pays attention to like everything that I would nitpick about. Just the littlest things of you're in a firefight, you're in a conflict, and you're taking cover. The game's gameplay is, you know, taking cover, picking your shots. Dynamic cover, by the way. Think of Gears of War, but without pressing A to shift into gear, rather walking up. Did I say shifting into gear? Shifting into cover. Rather than pressing A to shift into cover, you walk up to the cover and then you just press your crouch button. That's basically how it works. That's why I'd say it's dynamic. Just little stuff from a dude seeing me in a house and then seeing me move behind a dumpster to then say he's behind the dumpster. That little stuff really just pulls you into the experience, making you feel like, you know, these engagements are real. The danger is real with how every shot counts. The reactions, the animations, what I mean is how it's not just you get shot, you wince, and then you take out the dude. No, if you're running at a dude and he shoots you while you're running, you're going to fall back and you're going to be vulnerable. You're going to need to pick yourself up. Like, that kind of stuff makes it just feel gritty. It just makes it feel just all the more engaging for me. When you're going into cover, you know, with Ellie or anyone else that's there with you, say you're both taking cover behind the same thing, you won't just, your models won't clip into each other as peak video games do. No, they'll shift. They'll shimmy into a position like under you to, you know, make it look real. And it's just, oh, those finer details are just what I freaking live and breathe for in those types of games. The soundtrack, let me tell you, man, pianos and violins, they still are on the S tier. They'll always carry a they'll always carry a score. and a nice guitar, of course. But let me not talk like I play instruments. Um, Without saying much about the game, because of course I don't want someone to randomly waltz up on this that doesn't want to be spoiled, even though the game is ancient. I think keeping yourself away from that stuff is good. Believe it or not, I somehow went into the game not knowing much. Even despite listening to reviews as of recently, due to the second one's release, still somehow remain pretty spoiler free. And even with spoilers, like just a tidbit, going back to The Walking Dead, and I'll explain why I keep bringing that game back up. I don't know if I mentioned it, but with The Walking Dead, at least for the first season and a little bit of the final season, i.e. the first episode, I was already spoiled to the game. In fact, when I first played The Walking Dead, I had already known essentially, at least for season 1, I had essentially known everything that was going to transpire. But still, and I said this in the video that my It's Never Too Late video, even with this knowledge, audience to player is so different. I can't explain it. I know people might get mad when they get spoiled on something, but even with this knowledge, it didn't hamper on the experience, because then once you become a player, at least for me, that stuff kind of just goes away. The knowledge of it, it just kind of fades when you're in the moment. And it's just kind of like you're reliving it for the first time, even though you know deep down that it's not. It's weird. I don't know how to explain it. It's just kind of something that if you know, you know. You know? And that's how it was with The Walking Dead. And back to The Last of Us. I don't really know how I was able to avoid spoilers. I'd say I definitely was blessed there. And that definitely maybe improved the experience, going into there not knowing how things were going to go. Even though I'm more so of a person that off the second playthrough is when I really appreciate the game. For a first playthrough, done in one sitting, I think I paced myself pretty much perfectly. I was stuck in some parts, but things went smoothly, and I enjoyed the ride. I mean, that game, oh, God. Did I mention the cinematics of the game? I mean, besides the game feeling cinematic just in gameplay, another thing about the small details, actually, since I'm coming here. See, this is why I like doing things without a script. It makes you realize things as you're talking. About the smaller details in the combat itself, not just enemy callouts, but just how visceral things seem, and where the gameplay itself is clunky, it's slow, it's basic, but at the same time it feels deep. When you're in a melee confrontation, rather with either your fists or a weapon, you know, the environment takes into play. If I'm punching a dude and, you know, there's a bench in the way, he's not just gonna, you know, do the typical video game thing of he might stumble, but then, you know, he'll act like the bench won't be there. No, he'll fall over the bench. You might have to end up hitting him while he's hunched over the thing. If there's a wall, the wall will take into play. You know, you might press your forearm against a dude and hold him up to the wall, crack his head on the wall, on the pavement. It makes for experiences that really are memorable. They seem cinematic, even if it's just standard issue gameplay, and it just makes for that much more of a well-crafted game. The cinematics, when it goes away from, you know, in-game engine, oh, that's the key. When it goes away from in-game engine to actual freaking, you know, pre-rendered cutscenes, it's really beautiful. Truly, those are some of the highlights of the game. Which isn't something that many games can say. I'm sure you can think of a bunch of games where you're in the middle of the game and then, here comes a cutscene, blah blah blah, on to the next one. No, when a cutscene happens, those are some of the most interesting moments as you really get in touch with these characters. Speaking of the characters, I mean, another thing that really helps this game with the theme, the tone, the lack of characters. I think legitimately there's probably less than 20 characters you'll know by name. In fact, probably less than 15 characters you'll know by name. And all of them are just, the very few that you run into, they're all so well done, all so believable, so lifelike. It's really good stuff. I can't stress it enough. The reason why I can barely even talk right now is because when you get off of a game like that, at least for me, all that I'm thinking of is, man, that was a really good game. I want to go back, but at the same time, I don't want to. You know? Like off that dream sequence in the final season when it's little Clem and Lee again. After that scene, I'm just like, dang, can I go back there real quick? But you can't. And with games like that, I know you're saying, well, you could always replay it again. One, it's not my PlayStation. And two, I just don't feel like those games are meant to be played more than once a year, you know? I don't know what it is. For me, pacing in video games is very important. I play certain games at certain times to get the most engagement. You know, with F13, Red Dead 2, that's just how I've done them. A game like The Walking Dead, I mean, legit, that's a game that at most maybe twice a year. And that's it. But it doesn't change the value of it. And I think the same with The Last of Us. And that game's a lot different in the sense that there's a lot more gameplay in it, and that gameplay is really engaging. And even with this, even if I had a PlayStation, I don't think I'd be able to go back to the game for a long while. And I think that really just goes to show how good it is. It just kind of after I beat it, and I watched the credits all the way through, because the score is really good. I mean, I really was just sitting there, kind of wide-eyed, kind of sweaty, kind of shaky, and I was just quiet. I mean, what is there to add? It's just you experienced a really, really, really good game, and I'm honored. I'm honored as a player to have experienced that. I encourage anyone with any game that piques your interest in the slightest, if you can find a way, make it happen. Play that game because you don't know how they're going to affect you. Each game is a story that's being told, and we as humanity have evolved through these stories. And man, that is one story that I am so honored to have played. That's really all I can put. That's the only way I could tell you. I mean, that's just at this point I'm beating a dead horse, but like, god damn, that was a really good game. That's all I could think of when I was playing it. I was like, god damn, this is a really good game, dude. And it just kept getting better and better and better and better and better and better. It's like, dang, man. Dang, Xbox, why you gotta do me like this? That game indeed is a system seller. I'll tell you. I could see people buying a PlayStation just to play that. And now going on to the second one. I don't know much about it, but I've heard what needs to be heard about it. I still want to play the game. I want to avoid the spoilers as I have, and I still want to experience the second one. And frankly, that might be a horrible idea. I might be supporting things that should not be supported, because trust and believe, I have no doubt that the things that I've heard from people are justifiable, are completely reasonable. Not at all am I saying that there are wrong opinions here. It's just one of those things where I feel, dang, you really need to experience it in order to understand it. Because in this situation, from going from The Last of Us 1 to The Last of Us 2 and hearing the contrast between the two, it doesn't seem like real life, you know? How does something go from this to that? And I'm saying this without knowing what that is. But I still want to one day experience it, and I feel that day might not be as far as I might think myself. I don't know what else to tell you. I really want to just get on here because I just want to talk about the game. Compare and contrast, right? Would I compare The Walking Dead and The Last of Us? Sure. Would I say one's better than the other? Maybe later. Right now, no. Right now, I would not say one is better than the other. They both play out differently. Here's where I think people compare the two. It's pretty obvious, you know. Father figure, daughter figure, not actual dad, not actual daughter. End of the world scenario. Reasonable to compare, but the way it plays out is just very different, you know? One universe is completely different from another, even though they're both apocalypses. Actually, speaking of it, there's a Walking Dead Easter egg in The Last of Us. You actually go into a house that's designed like Clementine's house, but that's a sidetrack. They're both very good games, and I think something that's important to mention, games can be good, and they can coexist. Not every game has to be a competition. Please, please don't gatekeep. Don't say one is better than the other if it leads to, you know, conflict. Why can't we enjoy both for what they are? I'm sure everyone could agree that they're both fantastic games. And in this case, coming from, you know, someone who has an Xbox, I don't have PlayStation, and I just played a PlayStation 4 exclusive that I know, unfortunately, I'll never be able to see here, but I think one day I'll be able to own. That game is fire. An absolute system seller, and such an honor to play, man. Let me stop beating the dead horse. I just wanted to talk about the game because I feel it's definitely up there. Ooh, it's up there. And if I could find a different way to, you know, speak my mind about games like that, or just that game in general, I'll hopefully do it in the future. But right now, I just really wanted to say my piece on the game. That game has definitely destroyed me. And it's brought me back to a feeling I didn't feel in a long while. And some feelings I didn't know existed. Like, that whole deal of, dang. Oh my god. The thugs outside in their fireworks. Of that whole, dang man. I'll just never have this, huh? But I think eventually, through time, I will. That game is a masterpiece. That game is a system seller. And I highly encourage anyone who plays games to find a way to play that one. That's just one of those that you can't live without, you know? Kind of like a young male not ever playing a Call of Duty game. Doesn't make any sense. If you like story-based single-player games, I think that one you need to get off the bucket list. It wouldn't be right not to. So I'm going to get to this bonfire, and I think I'm going to call it wraps there. Dang, man. What a fine game. Oh, God. It's like you just want more, but you don't want more. I think one problem with me is I let my head control my actions too much. Now, let me preface this by saying pause. What I mean is when I make a rule in my head, I try very hard not to break it, even though it's only reinforced by me. You know, in the sense that this game was really good. Now I can't play it again. When, you know, maybe I should, and obviously I could, but I don't, because in my head I'm like, you shouldn't. It was a great experience. Give it a break now. And I feel like that happened with The Walking Dead, and I feel like that's definitely gonna happen with The Last of Us. Oh. Now I'll probably scour forums about the game, discover another new community in games, and now I can tread a little lighter on YouTube, since I can safely look at stuff regarding the first game, which I'm sure will be a joy to me as I learn much more about the universe, about the game's creation, and everything between that. So, thank you for listening. I really like talking about incredible games, and that's about it. The Last of Us has destroyed me for the time being. Good job, Naughty Dog. Oh boy. I wonder what the second one's going to be like. Also, when Mixer shuts down, I'm not sure if I'll be able to do these again, so